The Holy Gospel according to John, as found in the 11th chapter.
Glory to you, Lord.
When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench, because he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
Please be seated. There's a story told about Anatole France, a 19th century writer and Nobel laureate. It's one of those true stories that may or may not have actually happened. The story goes that as a young boy, Anatole was fascinated by the lives of the saints and all their unusual exploits. He was especially interested in Saint Simeon Stylites, whose name I am probably mispronouncing, a rather peculiar saint who expressed his devotion to God by living on top of a 60-foot pillar in the Syrian desert for 30 years. One day, the young Anatole decided that he would try to imitate Saint Simeon. Since there was no 60-foot pillar around, he climbed up on top of a cupboard in his kitchen. It was the best he could do. He stayed there all morning, but by lunchtime he'd had enough, and feeling discouraged, he climbed down from his perch. His mother realized how disappointed he was and tried to cheer him up. "You mustn't feel bad about this," she said. "You at least made the attempt, which is more than most people have ever done. But keep in mind, it is almost impossible to be a saint in your own kitchen." I think that Anatole's mother was a very wise woman. Her son's idea of saintliness was drawn from pious legends and stained glass windows. The saints we find in these depictions are never angry or unsure. They are quietly, calmly devout, trusting in God, smiling through their difficulties. Their faith shines through even when they are in the midst of being martyred. That's all fine if you're looking for an inspiring picture to decorate some splendid cathedral. They look wonderful in stained glass or painted plaster. But I can't imagine these saints ever peeling potatoes, and they look totally out of place scrubbing the floor or unclogging the sink. Let's face it, kitchens are undramatic places, unheroic places where it's hard to look holy. They're where the real business of our lives happens: cooking, cleaning, organizing, or at least trying to. If your kitchen is anything like mine, there's usually some sort of work in progress. A meal is being prepared, dishes waiting to be washed, even stray groceries waiting to be put in the pantry. There's never a time when everything is neatly sorted out in a kitchen, at least not for very long. Kitchens can be very messy places too. No one puts their antiques in the kitchen or their finest linens. It's where we put those well-worn tables and chairs that already have a few bumps and scrapes. And things can go wrong. At least they do in my kitchen. Sauces turn out lumpy, toast gets burned, and turkeys don't get done on schedule. Kitchens can also be the places where emotionally real and messy things happen. Somehow the deepest conversations seem to happen around the kitchen table or standing at the sink with your sleeves rolled up. And of course, a kitchen can be the place where you feel the loneliest if you live alone, cooking for one and sitting alone at the table. Kitchens expose the real us, and my guess is that the real us often doesn't feel saintly at all. That's why being a saint in your own kitchen is such an odd idea. A call to saintliness seems like an impossibility as we stand amidst the chaos of our own lives. But we are called to holiness, to sainthood. Today's celebration of All Saints Sunday isn't just about those heroes and heroines of the Christian faith. It's about all of us. So if sainthood feels so alien, hard to imagine happening in our own kitchens and in our own lives, maybe there's something wrong with our image of sainthood. Take a look at today's gospel reading. Jesus comes to Bethany, to the house of his friends Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. But Lazarus has fallen ill and has died. This isn't news to Jesus. He's known that Lazarus was ill for several days. In fact, his friends begged him to come and heal Lazarus as he had healed so many. But he didn't come, not until it was too late. By the time Jesus arrived, Lazarus was dead and had been in his tomb for 4 days. Can you imagine the scene when Jesus did finally get there? Mary is prostrate with grief, falling at Jesus' feet and angrily challenging him, "If you had been here, my brother would not have died." She is weeping. Her neighbors who have come to console her are weeping, and pretty soon Jesus is weeping. These aren't the restrained, elegant tears. This is the kind of weeping that makes your eyes red and your face blotchy. And to add to the grief and the anger, there's also confusion. No one thinks it needed to happen. As the onlookers point out, what's the point of having this famous healer for a friend if he isn't going to make it a priority to be there when you need him? When they get to the tomb, things seem to go from bad to worse. Jesus wants the stone pushed away. "No," Martha says, "it's been too long. There's a terrible smell." But Jesus insists. So the stone is taken away, and Jesus calls to Lazarus to come out. And when Lazarus does come out, the reaction of the onlookers is by no means universally joyful. The verses after today's reading tell us that while half of those present believed in Jesus, the other half went straight to the Pharisees to complain. Never mind that Lazarus has his life back, that his sisters have their brother back. Some people can't tolerate this upsetting of the natural order. It just isn't right. And it's this incident that seals Jesus' fate. From here on, the authorities are determined that Jesus must die. It's easy for us, from a distance of 2,000 years and with the benefit of hindsight, to overlook the terrible messiness of this story. We see the faith of Mary and Martha as they ask Jesus for help, but we miss their doubts and their anger that he wasn't there sooner. We see Jesus' confidence that his Father will act, but we miss the grief that overcomes him when he's faced with the mourning that he has caused those he loves. We see the triumph of Lazarus' resurrection, but we miss the unfolding sense of scandal that will lead to Jesus' arrest and crucifixion. To understand this story, we need to do more than just read the words, safe on their page in neat black and white. We need to hear the sobbing and the wailing. We need to see the faces twisted with anguish and smell the sickly odor of the tomb. There's no simple, tidy solution offered here, Mary and Martha are not shining, beautiful stained glass figures, but real human beings. Mary, Martha, and Jesus are brutally honest with one another. There is no pretense that everything is all right here. But within their confusion, they cling to the faith that God still is. They don't assume that God has ceased to exist simply because things aren't turning out the way they expected or desired. And they cling to the hope that somehow God will act, even if they can't imagine how. God still is, whatever happens. Can you be a saint in your own kitchen? It seems impossible if we think of saintliness as the ability to sail through troubles of life, smiling and tranquil with our faith unruffled. But the saints in this story show us a different way. Holiness that is rooted in reality and honesty. And that encompasses doubt along with faith, tears along with smiles, and anger along with gratitude. Can you be a saint in your own kitchen? Well, if you can't, then maybe there isn't much point in being a saint anywhere else. If faith isn't real in the kitchen, in the ordinary, messy places of our lives where life seems always to be a work in progress, then what use is it? Amen.